If Jesus come back today, Fox News would call him a communist. Wall Street would blacklist him, and half of the church in America probably gonna kick him out. Why?
And I found these quotes from Mao Zedong about the black struggle in the United States. And I'm going to read these quotes to you. Let me tell you what China did, even being poor as fuck. In the 60s and 70s, Mao did international aid to countries of Africa, zero profit. Hey y'all, so I am currently reading a book all about the Communist Party of China and its history. And I know that like we are looking at China from a 2025 lens. Like I've been here for 15 years, and reading this book is like what we see today. It's like China had to go through so much to get to that point. I need y'all to understand that, the China we see today took decades, centuries even. And like this, I'm not finished with it yet. I've got like 2 chapters left. I'm still like, I'm towards the end where it's like the end of World War II, and then the resuming of the civil war between the nationalists, or the KMT, and the Communist Party. And it caused me to go on a deep dive. And the deep dive that I went on was like the 60s in China in tandem with the 60s in the United States, particularly like the civil rights movement. And I found these quotes from Mao Zedong about the black struggle in the United States. And I'm going to read these quotes to you. Give me a second. So on April 16, 1968, just 12 days after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, Mao Zedong issued a public statement titled, "In support of the Afro-American struggle against violent repression." This was not a quiet diplomatic memo. This was a bold, worldwide call-out of the United States. Mao explicitly framed the Black liberation struggle as part of the global anti-imperialist movement. Okay, and then we'll do the takeaways. So he's quoted to say, "The Black masses in the United States are waging an extremely heroic struggle. The storm of their struggle is bound to become part of the powerful current of the worldwide struggle against U.S. imperialism. The United States, or the U.S. imperialists, oppress the Black people at home while oppressing people abroad. They are the enemies of the people of the world." He condemned the U.S. government as imperialist, racist, and violent, and praised urban uprisings as legitimate rebellion, and encouraged solidarity between Chinese people and oppressed peoples globally, especially Black Americans. Also, during the 60s, the Communist Party of China arranged so many diplomatic missions or trips for different Black organizations. The Black Panthers came to China. They came here even before Richard Nixon. Well, yeah. And there was a lot of like other groups, like people who were part of like what is it, like the Freedom Riders, that. And I'm like, damn. And that is we're in the same fight. Mao saw it. I never knew that. Anyway, I thought I would share that with y'all because I thought that was very interesting. If you want to hear more about my reads, there's so much going on in this book. I'll show you a little bit of it. It's the manga. Hold on, let me show you. Yes, I read all of it in Chinese. Okay, so this is post-World War II China. You got the two parties, the Nationalist Party, or the Kuomintang, and then you have the Communist Party, Gongchandang. And they are ridiculously under, like, what is it? Less power, significantly less powerful, weaker, extreme. Like they've only got 1.2 million soldiers versus their 4 million. They've got like these bayonet looking ass weapons versus US funded tanks, airplanes, etc. And then they've got, but they have the support of the people. The support of the people. They have the support of the American military. All of this shit is related. When we look at what's going on in today's world, I mean, reading this book has brought me through, like, just seeing, like, I know U.S. is an evil country. I know that. But it's like, wait, it's like, how can you be even more evil than I already thought you were? It's like, it never ceases to amaze me how every global problem, every single one of them is always linked back to the United States. All of them. What's going on in Palestine, what's going on in Yemen, Sudan, every conflict. What went on 10 years ago, 20 years ago, for the last century, every single conflict can be traced back to U.S. imperialism. I mean, fuck. It's like, and anyway, all of this is to say, the Chinese Communist Party, at the time of their civil war, they were extremely outnumbered. They shouldn't have won, right? I mean, we see the same thing in, like, Vietnam and a lot of other places that happen to win. But, like, you always think that, oh, powerful military, that is what wins. That's not it. There's more to it. When you think about, like, Chairman Mao, he just won. He's like, he's the, the face of the revolution. But, like, bruh, I don't know how that man survived. Like, dude was it's a miracle that he survived. It's a miracle that the Communist Party survived. Because they were just, like, completely ravished for years, for like 20 years. War after war after war after war after war after war. And they have not been in a war since the 70s. No fucking wars. Nothing. They might want to tell you differently on the Western media, but they don't fucking do that shit. They're like, man, we fought. I'm blown away. It's actually an inspiring story. Like, even if you look at the Long March, I always heard of the Long March, right? But I never really dug into what the Long March was. Just look up the Long March. I'm talking, they was in the damn mountains, the snowy mountains, starvation, bullets flying everywhere, disease. They was in the mountains with no shoes. The snowy mountains with no shoes. It was in the swamps. I don't know how they survived. It was the cause. I'm not even done with the book all the way. But, like, reading about some, just, Like, how have I been living here for 15 years? Even though I've always just known surface level stuff about the revolution and whatnot, but not this in depth. And I'm like, it is inspiring. Like, don't let them make you think that revolutionaries can't win, because they can. They can. And China is proof of that. And now this nation is, what is it, having the fruits of that crazy time. If communism is a failing system, how come America has spent an unquantifiable amount of money to see that that system fails? Doesn't make any sense. Like, really think about it. Like, if it's bound to fail, then why have they spent so much money to make sure that it never spreads across the world if it's going to fail anyway? Weird. Okay, I want to talk about this a little bit. Like, okay, so it's also why the United States tried so hard to demonize Mao, and why "Long live the great solidarity of the people of the world" is written in Tiananmen Square. Let's draw the picture. So I read this book, the manga, all about Chinese Communist Party history. And it's a tale of triumph, failures, starvation, famine, war, freezing temperature, like all kinds of things, betrayal. It's everything's happening. Everything's going on. So let's just look at the time period. After the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949, with the victory of the Communist Party over the heavily backed American puppet state, which is the Kuomintang. Okay, so we know that. We've seen that pattern all throughout history, where American military funds one side. There's 1,000 examples. And it's still going on today. Okay, so at the time, China was completely, utterly ravished. Had to start from zero. The Kuomintang, when they fled to Taiwan, they took all of the gold reserves from this central bank. I'm talking about, like, probably the value of, like, I don't know, several $100 million at the time, you know, maybe even $1 billion worth of gold at the time. And China had to start over. And at the time, there were no allies, very few allies, because it's the Cold War. And the only ally that they have, major ally, essentially is the Soviet Union. But the different approach to the Soviet Union is quite interesting, because even though they were socialist in ideology, they were the first country to have a socialist revolution and overthrow an entire dynasty and establish a socialist government. They weren't giving out no handouts. None. So picture China at the time, baby nation, just started after having almost, like, over 20 years of war. No, even more. But, like, if we just talk about from the party perspective, from the founding of the Chinese Communist Party to the founding of the People's Republic, that's 20 straight years, 2 decades of war on the ground, you know, throughout the whole country. And, of course, the goal was for them to industrialize, and industrialize rapidly, because this is kind of the viewpoint of Marxism, which is flawed. Like, looking back, like, of course, these type of mistakes I don't think would have been made if they knew then what they know now. Anyways, they needed to industrialize because they viewed the workers as the main asset of establishing a socialist or communist society, right? By the time, China was mainly farmers. Like, I think like 80-something% of the population were farmers. So they had a very small proletariat class. I mean, this is a proletariat, like if you're a farmer or a factory worker. But in Russia, in contrast, was a lot more factory workers than China. Anyways, I feel like I'm like going all over the place, so you just have to bear with me. Okay, so essentially, Soviets are, trading with them. The renminbi is new. They ain't trying to take no renminbi. So they need like machinery. They need infrastructure. They need technology. They need engineers. All of that stuff, right? And the Soviet Union were willing to provide that, but for a cost. And what did that cost? How can they pay them? They ain't got no more reserves, no more gold reserves. The Kuomintang, with the help of the United States, done took all their money. Took all their money. And how do they pay them? Okay, they have to pay them in grain and raw materials, right? That's the best they can do. Which in turn did cause a famine. Like if you look at the Great Leap Forward, it's not always just one straight reason, right? It was multifaceted reason. Famine doesn't just happen from one decision, right? It's an entire web of unfortunate events taking place and bad decision making. And so anyway, imagine at the time, China's broke. They're selling all their grain to the Soviet Union to industrialize their country, which causes famine. And a lot of revolutionaries at the time really criticized the Soviet Union because it was ideologically going against the whole point of socialism. It's like you give what you have to who needs it. That's the whole point of it. And since like we are ideologically aligned against the West, against the system of capitalism, and we just had our whole asses handed to us, and you have the means, but you ain't give so I'm talking about criticism from like Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, Mao himself. Like, what the fuck is going on? I mean, I'm not asking for everything for free, but damn. Anyways, let me tell you what China did, even being poor as fuck. In the 60s and 70s, Mao did international aid to countries of Africa, zero profit, did it just to do it. And he's quoted as saying, let me find that quote. Okay, I found the quote, but like getting it on TikTok is pissing me off, so forget it. I'll just say what it said. He gave zero profit aid to countries around the world who are also having socialist movements, even though they were poor. He said, we have to support these global revolutions, even though we don't have that much money to help them, but it is our duty to help our friends. And Che Guevara actually, if you know who Che Guevara is, if you don't, do that, yep. He actually, and I think it was also him and Fidel Castro, they visited China and they heavily criticized the Soviet Union's approach to other communist countries, communist revolutions, and they were inspired by Mao's approach because Mao was doing what he could. Like, look, I only got a sandwich, but I'll give you a bite. The Soviets was like, I got a sandwich. You want to buy? And they said that the Soviets would give you weapons with one hand and take rice with the other. Or give you machinery, whatever, and take rice with it. Take the food out of the people's mouths. And so that's why they hated Mao. That's why they hated Mao. And we're seeing a lot of a resurgence of this kind of zero profit, maybe not as cut and dry as Mao was like, no, we giving it. Nowadays with infrastructure projects and stuff like that, those are like commercial loans. But I implore you to look up the Belt Road Initiative and also look up the Global Directive Initiative, Global Development Initiative, GDI. Look up that. Look that up. And tell me about China now. Tell me versus the West.
It has been an insightful compilation, and on this basis, you can agree with me that conversations about racism against Black people, or let me say African people in China, shouldn't be a conversation. These are people who knew about our struggles even before you knew that you will have struggles, because this was in history with Mao. You have seen that. And there's even provision for help, you know. They helped in the lowest moment. They were broke, you know. The system was not working. They were still trying to come out of poverty, trying to survive, lacking food, but still they could offer help to African countries. You can tell that China's heart is with us. And yeah, I really have to find the title of this book. And I want to leave you with a clip right here, because there are so many people who justify Christianity as the reason why they're doing all these evil things around the world. But this is what the Bible says about capitalism, selfishness. That's the better word for capitalism, selfishness, you know. This is what the Bible says, because so many people think that Christianity is evil. Christianity is evil when it's communicated to you through another person. But when you read the Bible and find the truth for yourself, the truth will set you free. That's what the Bible says. The truth will set us free. And I was glad to see that the person who was quoting the Bible right here is a Chinese. Chinese American, yes.
If Jesus come back today, Fox News would call him a communist. Wall Street would blacklist him, and half of the church in America probably gonna kick him out. Why? Because everything Jesus did sounds a lot more like wealth redistribution than capitalism. Let's look at the fact. He fed 5,000 regular people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. No charge, no cash. That's not charity. That's wealth redistribution in action. Everyone got fed equally because everyone matters. Then a rich man asked how to get into heaven. Jesus said, sell everything you own, give the money to the poor. That's not stock tip. That's a full-on redistribution of wealth. He walked into the temple, see the bankers exploiting the faithful, and straight up flipped their table. That Jesus going off financial elites for taking advantage of working class people. After he died, his followers lived together, shared all their possessions, and made sure no one had too much or too little. No private property, no hoarding. That's not a Bible study. That sounds like a commune. Let's be real. Jesus stood with the poor, the working class, the ones society left behind. He did not praise the rich. If Jesus ever show up today, a lot of the people here gonna call him a radical socialist. And here's the truth. I'm pretty sure Jesus was not a capitalist. And he's sure as hell was not preaching in a country choked by late-stage capitalism, with regular people work 3 jobs while billionaires buy rocket and tax loopholes.